Hello, welcome back to Let's Go Crafting. I'm Connie. This is the first video in a series of videos that is going to be teaching knitting. The very first step in order to be able to knit any project is to learn how to cast on. So let's get started. The first thing you'll need to do is pick yarn that you would like to work with. You can pretty much use any yarn. I would recommend something smooth that's not, like no fancy yarn, no mohair, just something that's pretty smooth. I like cotton, and the reason why I like cotton is that when I'm learning a new stitch, I can make something that's useful, and typically I make dishcloths. I like to use this sugar and cream yarn. There's all kinds of 100% cotton out there, and you can choose other yarns if you want. So I'm going to use the sugar and cream. You're also going to need a set of needles. There's a recommended needle for every yarn. This yarn recommends a needle size of 5mm, which is a size 8. Since I've worked with this yarn for a long time, I'm going to use a size 7, which is 4.5mm. The first step in getting your yarn onto your needles is to make a slip knot. Now, if you already know how to make a slip knot, go ahead and make one. So if you don't, I'm going to show you the mechanics of making one, and then I'm going to show you how I typically make one. So just to start learning to make a slip knot, you take the end of your yarn and you put it over to the left, and then you have this straight line of yarn. Then you take the yarn that's attached to your yarn ball and you make a little loop. And you want to make sure that the yarn that comes around and makes a loop is over the end yarn. So if you can see, it's over the top of that end yarn. Then you're going to take this loop yarn, the one that's on the end of your the end of your ball of yarn, and you're going to push that underneath this straight piece of yarn. And then you'll hold on to it, and it creates a little loop, just like that. The slip knot is good. You can make it any size you want, so you can adjust it. If you have a small needle, you can make it super small. If you have a really large needle, you can make it bigger. Now I'm going to show you how I make them. Now that you know the mechanics of what's going on, I'm going to show you how I do it. So I'm going to undo my slip knot just by pulling. I lay my yarn across the palm of my hand. Here's my end, and then here's the part that goes to my ball of yarn. I just wrap it around my finger. I create the little X, and then I take that yarn and I push it through the hole, and it does the same thing. It creates your slip knot. You want a couple of inches on this end in order, just so that you don't come unraveled, and I'll show you what to do with that when we're done with this project. So now you have your slip knot. You're going to take one of your needles. You're going to face the point away from you, and you're going to stick your needle into that slip knot, into the loop, and you're going to pull it so that it's snug up against your needle. Now your needle needs to move freely. You don't want your loop to be super huge, but you don't want it really tight on the needle. All right, now it's time to get our second stitch on. Now we need our second needle. So both of your needles are here. They're parallel to one another. You take the needle that does not have a stitch on it, and you stick the tip of that needle into the stitch that's already on your left-hand needle. So now you've got your two needles parallel to each other in the same stitch. And if you can see, I'm going to move this up like that. There's like this little gap in between. There's a little hole. You've extended the stitch, so you have a little gap there. That's important. So you're going to take the yarn that's attached to the ball of yarn, and it comes from the back through the center of your needles, and you just kind of let it go off to the right. Now you take both your needles, you turn the right one at a 90-degree angle, and you remember that gap we were talking about? Well, that's the gap where you push the yarn that just got laid across onto your other needle. Then you want to move your stitch on the right hand needle to the stitch on the left hand needle. So you take the left hand needle and you come behind and you put it into the stitch on the right hand needle, and you take your needle out and you pull snug enough that it will move easily. Now let's do a third one. You take your right hand needle, you put it into the stitch on the left hand needle. Make sure you're not using the end yarn. Make sure you're using the yarn that's attached to your ball. You bring that from the back through the center of your needles to the front and drop it off to the right. Your right hand needle comes at a 90-degree angle, and you push that yarn through, and now you've got your new stitch on your right hand needle. You take it off. Let's do it again. So the needle goes in, the yarn comes through to the front from the back. Your right hand needle goes at a 90-degree angle, and you push that laid yarn through the gap so that you have another new stitch. You take your left hand needle, bring it kind of to the back, and just push it off your needle. All right, one more. Needle goes in, yarn comes through, it's pushed through the old stitch, and now it gets moved to your left hand needle. Now we have 5 stitches. So whenever you're knitting, the loops that are on your needle are called stitches. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 5 stitches. Now to make a dishcloth, I usually cast on between 40 and 45 stitches. So let's go do that, and then I'll teach you your first knitting stitch, which is called the garter stitch. Right? See you next time. And if you liked this video, please subscribe to our channel. If you want to be notified of all upcoming videos, just hit that bell and you'll be notified when the next one drops. The best way to help us out is to like and share our videos. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye now.